Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you all so much for being here. We will give people a few moments to log on and join us today. We're really excited. This is our final webinar for our Walk, Ride, and Roll webinar series. So we've had 3 this year. This is webinar number 3. We're talking all about engaging and including students with disabilities in safe routes to school programs. So we're really excited to explore this topic in a really great session. We have some wonderful panelists who will share a bit about their work. So we are, looking forward to spending a bit of time with you today. So thanks so much for being here. And for those of you who are early birds and logged on right on time, if you want to do say a quick hello in the chat box, your name, where you're joining us from, your connection to Safe Routes. We'd also love to hear from you how you've engaged and included students with disabilities in Safe Routes programs. So we'll hear our panelists share some great examples from their own work. We would also love to hear from you all about what this work looks like in your communities. So go ahead and say a quick hello in the chat as people log on and join us, and we will get started in a few minutes. Thanks again for being here. So again, just name, location, your connection to Safe Routes, and then if and how you've engaged students with disabilities in Safe Routes programs. Let's see, thank you to, you see Beth kicking us off. See some familiar faces, some people in my neck of the woods. See Washington State, Colorado, New York City is in the chat. Nice to see you. All right, keep it coming, keep it coming. So again, your name, location, connection to Safe Routes, and then if and how you've engaged students with disabilities in Safe Routes programs. And also, if you haven't, or that's an area that you're exploring, that's totally fine. That's why we're having this discussion, to kind of give you all some ideas and inspirations for how to create more accessible and inclusive Safe Routes programs. So my hope is that you'll be able to take away some new strategies, ideas, and tidbits at the end of our time together. All right, so just a quick little check in the chat here to see what's going on, how people have been building accessible and inclusive programs. Let's see what we have. I see a few people talking about adapted bikes, so we'll definitely be talking about adapted bikes today during our conversation. We have some great examples of what that looks like from across the country. I see a lot of people just looking forward to learning more, which is awesome. I know that I'll be learning a lot today as well from our panelists. I see a few engineers in the chat box thinking about some engineering strategies around safe routes to school, which is always a really important part of the work that we do. Great. So continue to, drop in your comments and your ideas in the chat box. The chat box will stay open throughout the session, so please feel free to use it as you would like. So just to back up a bit before we dive into our discussion, I'm Corey Johnson. I'm our Program and Engagement Manager here at Safe Routes Partnership. For those of you who are familiar with us, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and joining us again. For those of you who might be new to our organization, we are a national nonprofit, and our mission is to advance safe walking, biking, and rolling, both to school, but also to other destinations like parks, grocery stores, libraries, and really thinking about the health and well-being of people of all races, income levels, abilities, disabilities, and building healthy, thriving communities for everyone. So thanks so much again for joining us. And like I said, I'm Corey. I am based in Baltimore, Maryland. I think I did see a few Marylanders in the chat, so shout out to you all. And just really excited to be here with you today. So a few webinar logistics, just so that you all know how this will work. Again, the chat will be open, so feel free to use it, share, ideas, thoughts, resources. We love to have a lively chat during our webinar session, so please use the chat box for that. We ask you to put questions in the Q&A box, just to kind of keep us organized here, because the chat can go pretty quickly. So comments and resources and ideas in the chat box, and then the Q&A questions will be in the Q&A box. And we'll have plenty of time at the end of our session for you to ask questions of our audience. So if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A box. We're also recording this webinar and we'll share the slides afterwards. So if you missed something or you want to share it, with a colleague, I'll make sure you get the link to the recording. It'll be posted on YouTube. And we'll also have a quick post survey that'll pop up on your screen, hopefully, after the webinar ends. So if you could take a few minutes, it's 3 questions just to let us know how we did and give us some feedback to help us improve for next time. We would really appreciate you filling that out as well. So that is about our webinar today. I have a few other housekeeping items and I'll move right into our introductions for our panelists. So I'm sure that you all know by now we are having our annual conference coming up in Fort Collins in October. In sneak peek, one of our presenters is from Fort Collins. If you want to see all of that great work in progress, please think about joining us for at our conference. Registration is now open. And we're also still accepting submissions where you can nominate a local Safe Routes champion for the Hubsmith Safe Routes Champion Award. We're looking to celebrate a Safe Routes practitioner who is committed to advancing equity in safe routes to school and who should be celebrated at our conference this fall. So if you want to nominate somebody for the award, nominations are open through May 30th, I believe. So you still have a little bit of time. So please make sure that you put in a few nominations for some Safe Routes champions that you hope to celebrate. And a few other reminders, just letting you all know that our Safe Routes Learning Center workshop and trainings catalog is available on our video. So as you all think about, the school year is wrapping up, but ways we can support your work either over the summer or the next school year, we're always happy to, customize workshops for you all, presentations provided by our technical assistance team, which is me. I think some of you might know Dave Cowan too from Minnesota. So we're always happy to, try to find ways to work with you and support you, whether that's virtual or in person. So if you have any, questions about our workshops or trainings, feel free to reach out via email. The email is down here at the bottom. And again, just some of the things that we do, a lot of it is safe routes to school related, but also anything related to, transportation planning, policies, programming, community engagement, which is one of my personal passions, state network support, or even just designing your own, workshop or custom training. So we're happy to work with you and support you with whatever you need. So, last thing before I hand things over to our first presenter, in 2018, we actually created a really great resource all about engaging students with disabilities and safe routes to school programs. So I'm going to link you, send out that link in my post webinar email, just that you all can take a look at that resource. And it really talks about a lot of the program benefits for students with disabilities, how to incorporate this work into the 6 E's, components of what inclusive programming looks like, considerations for different types of disabilities. So, we know that disability doesn't look, there's a range of disabilities, and that, what one student need might not be what another student needs. So just some, more specific considerations, and also how to partner and build your resources to better support students with disabilities and make your programs more accessible and more inclusive. And of course, you'll hear some really great examples from our presenters today. And we're also going to follow up with a blog post featuring the great work that you all will hear about today. So we'll make sure to send out a link to that as well when that is up. So super excited about this topic and ready to dive in. So we have 4 really awesome presenters, and we have a bunch of different time zones represented. So I'm holding down the East Coast. We have Ann Donica and Cody Sullivan from Bike First. So they're out of Portland, Oregon. We have Brian Kurasuchi, who's from Fort Collins Safe Routes to School. So again, you want to see Brian and Fort Collins in action, join us at our conference. And then we have Angie Powell, who's from Minneapolis Public Schools and their adapted physical education program. So each presenter is going to do a little quick introduction, and then we'll have a panel discussion, which is a little different from how we usually run our webinars. It's a lot of me talking usually, but I'm going to hand things over to our presenters. They'll share for a bit. Then we'll have a little panel discussion, and then you all are welcome to share your questions in the Q&A box. So I hope that works for you all. And I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Ann and Cody first to get us started talking about Bike First and all the great work that they are doing out in Oregon. So, Anne, you should be able to control the slides.
Thank you. So I'm Ann Donica, and I am a vice principal at an elementary school that's fully inclusive. And we have Cody here. Want to introduce yourself?
My name is Cody Solomon. I love the drive bike. Yeah, love days.
So I'm also the founder and the director of Bike First, which was inspired by Cody when he was 10 and he wanted to learn how to ride a bike, and traditional methods did not work at 100 pounds. And Cody also is the first person with Down syndrome in the state of Oregon to graduate from a university. So he is quite the inspiration. He definitely is a good example of what happens with independence when you give people the opportunity to thrive. This is our 19th year of Bike First. Oh, there we go. Here's our mission of Bike First, is to empower people with disabilities to be independent, confident, healthy, and social by teaching them the skills needed to ride traditional two-wheel bicycles. We strive to spread the significance of inclusion for all, break down barriers, and increase belonging in our communities. I think for some reason it's not, there we go. So Cody and I talked about it, and we wanted to share with you about Bike First through a social story. We use a social story, which is just a simple sketches of what is to come to prepare the participants in Bike First for helping with anxiety, helping with sensory things of what's going to happen. We have people with epilepsy, cancer, Down syndrome, autism, overgrowth syndrome. We have people who are just extremely fearful of falling. We also have the majority are children and youth, and every once in a while we have some adults who join us who just haven't learned how to ride a bike. And partway through the week, we have typical developing people show up and to learn how to ride also, because sometimes there are people who haven't learned how to ride because they live on a steep hill. And we also want to be very inclusive. So here's our check-in desk. Carson's there on the right, and she was one of our participants in the very, very beginning. So next they come out and the team, they meet the team. And before this all happens, we send out emails and mailings ahead of time to prepare the families of what's to come also and what to do after Bike First. So we have a partnership with Oregon Department of Transportation and the Portland Bureau of Transportation and Safe Routes to Schools. And we have found magnificent pamphlets and flyers and things that we can send out to families about here are bike routes, here's how to put on your helmet, etc. So we have people come to Bike First on a first come first served basis, and then I spread out the disabilities so that there is lots of energy in each session. The first step that I can tell you in your program is you've got to say yes. Families get very scared to send their kids with disabilities to camp because we're afraid that we're going to be rejected. And you can see after, Cody's 28, I still get a little emotional about that because we're scared. We need people to say, yes, let's figure out how to make this happen instead of, no, I'm sorry, we cannot do that. So I encourage you to say yes and to figure out how you're going to make it happen. So we do have a folder for each writer, and in the folder is their registration form that tells us things like, can your writer follow one-step directions? Can they follow three-step directions? What are they interested in? What is their history with trying to ride a bike? And we also have a picture of the person on the folder so that the teams that are created, we have 5 sessions a day for about an hour and 15 minutes. And we have 8 different leaders that lead groups of volunteers. And so we have 8 writers in each session. And then halfway through the week, as I said, with our quick start or the refresher, because we find that some people need to come back and refresh their skills, we add another 4 to 5. We are looking at things to help with help everyone be successful. At this point, when the parents or family members are letting their child or their youth or their adult come into Bike First, they're holding their breath because they so badly want their rider to learn how to be on a bike and to be healthy and robust and to have this life of inclusion. We also look for barriers in the environment. So we look around at the gym, we look around at the entry area, and we say, okay, what are the barriers here that are going to keep someone from being successful? So for instance, there might be a rider who's a runner. So then everyone is aware to watch for the runner. We don't chase them, but we keep them safe. There are some people who cannot have music on because of sensory issues. So at that point, our DJ either has the music off or has it down very low. So we're looking at how can we make Bike First accessible for everyone, and what are the things that we need to change? Because as a typical developing person, we may think, oh, this is the way everyone's going to access this information. And it's not the truth. Everyone accesses information differently. Cody, is there anything you want to say here? Not yet. Okay. We really believe that all behavior is communication. So we are always thinking, what is it they're trying to tell us with this behavior? What is it that they want? And what we've found that can be the hardest thing, and even someone who, you know, I was a teacher in inclusive setting also before I became a vice principal, and the hardest thing was the invisible disability. Because with Cody, you can look at him and you can see he has Down syndrome, and it's easier to wrap your mind around his disability than someone where you can't see it on their face or on their body. And so how can you be accepting and to get to know that person so that you can help them be successful? Helmets are required at all times. So we have even the riders, their group, if anyone is on a bike, they always have to have a helmet on. We have extra ones. We have a partnership with a scooter company in Portland called Lime. And actually, I think it's worldwide. And Lime has donated hundreds of helmets that are just, you know, the $50 beautiful helmet that happens, that they can have. The Oregon Department of Transportation, so you would have whatever state you're in, Department of Transportation is where you can get different information. They also have partnership meetings. And so we've gone to partnership meetings and we've made relationships with other people that are like-minded. And we have a trauma nurse coming this year who's going to really make sure that everyone is trained to have helmets on correctly. And we do send out videos and information on that. We train all of our volunteers and our paid staff on it. When they're called over one at a time. That is Walt, who is our bike mechanic. He drives all of the bikes up. And you'll see an example of the bike here in just a minute. And then there's Nate, who is the bike assistant. When we have them on bikes, it's really important for a person with a disability that they have foot forward mentality. So the pedals are out in front versus underneath them. So that way it's easier for them to pedal. We also, when they're seated on the bike, their feet need to touch flat on the floor, on the ground. That way they feel safe and they know that if they start to tip their foot is immediately there. And we're also looking for bikes that have them sitting up versus hunched over, like one of the racer bikes. Family members, we do not have in the gymnasium with us because they can get really intense and they want to say something to their kid to get them to ride. And so we've just found it's less distraction if they're there. We do have them stay in case there's some type of an emergency with their rider. Anything you want to say here, buddy?
I did his my friends that for help did the bike first in park camp. We have the different gyms, sleeping. You mean me Emma. How do we help the Noah the Joshua and Heather? You said for the bike first team leaders talking to the team group meeting downstairs for our parties. We back first. This is the horse.
Thank you. Yeah, Cody has had a lot of friends who come and help at Bike First. We have some people who have helped for 19 years. Once you get hooked on it, it's hard not to keep coming back. So we use a lot of behavioral incentives instead of bribes. So behavioral incentives, you can see the person in the center who has a baby doll that they've figured out and hooked it up to the bike so the baby doll would go around. We've had people for an hour and 15 minutes going round and around singing Disney songs with the person because that's what they like. We've had people with bright orange safety vests. So it's what is it that they enjoy? What is it that, is it Pokemon? Is it whatever it is? What we've realized is that there's not one perfect accommodation for anyone. And so you really have to be creative and you have to think individually about that person. So there's kind of a picture there of the contraption that's on the bike. And our volunteers are constantly building up the dopamine in the riders by cheering and clapping for them and encouraging them. The team stays with them all week, so there are beautiful bonds that are built. What we found is that if you don't know what the person it needs, you just ask them, what do you need? Do you need help? Instead of just assuming that they need the help. And then if they aren't able to tell you, then of course we go to the families. So they go round and round and round. And then one of the floor directors, we have 2 floor directors who will yell, change direction. And so they're working on leaning in different ways. And you can see that there are black handles on the back of the bikes. And we try not to touch them. We never touch the steering wheel because that they need to be able to have the control of the steering. And we don't touch the handle unless they're going to fall or they need a little push to get them to go faster. You can see that there are some circles on the bottom where the metal is, and they are doing the air pressure up and down. So the back wheel of the bike is actually up in the air until they can go fast enough and they can steer and lean, and then they start lowering that air pressure so that the back tire can touch the ground. We're looking at small steps. So what in your participant are they doing? Some of our students, we have to do lots of tricks just to get them to put a helmet on. Some of them are scared to touch the bike. Some of them, we have to do silly things to get them on the bike. We find that sometimes, especially those on the spectrum, probably more, are the sensory of the gym is a lot for them. So they may take that first day just exploring the gym, and we're like, okay with that. It's a transition. What do they need in order to be successful is always what we're thinking about. We find that the participants build in their confidence, and it is always such a joy to have families say, you will not believe this. Bella got dressed by herself this morning, or Mason decided that he was going to eat his own breakfast and buckle himself in the car. So we're building this confidence that is moving on to various areas of their life. So as we said before, that our mission is to empower people with disabilities to be independent, etc. We firmly believe that we need to have people with disabilities on our staff. And so we have Cody, who is a paid employee, and he is the team motivator, and he is also on the safety team. We have Griffin up in the top right-hand corner, and he is the transition specialist on the safety team. We have Harrison down in the purple. He is our DJ, and on also the social emotional learning team. That is Tiffany, who has come. She's now coming for her second year. I was really saddened when her mom reached out to me 2 various ways to ask if it was okay if she can come help again. Because once again, we're afraid our kids are going to be rejected. So my response was, of course we want her back. Yes, we want her back. And then the last one in the corner, that's Tarn. And Tarn came to our Quick Start program when we first started it. And he didn't know how to ride a bike. He's typical developing. And he's now doing things like this and has sponsors and thousands of followers on his Instagram and Facebook. So we have a tandem bike. The tandem bike is really neat. The person in front can do the steering and they pedal. They learn how to go super fast. They can be overridden by the person in the back. So if there's a safety issue, the driver in the back can steer or put on the brakes. And in the lower right-hand corner, that's Tarn, who I was talking about, who is the BMX or trickster or whatever biker. And they really learn on the tandem how to go quickly and just feel that with them. So we use that as an incentive, and some people are afraid of it. So we have to work with them on that. We tend to put them on it, bounce back and forth from the outriggers, which is the name of our bikes, to the tandem and back and forth. And then finally, right before we put them on 2 wheels, a typical developing bike, we go ahead and we do it one more time. So we're teaching different skills. We'll go back to this one right here. You can see how they're working on keeping the hip in, putting the feet on the brakes, really making these incredible bonds. We are constantly assessing and documenting the skills that they're learning and turning those in. Next, we launch them, and riders can learn in 1 day, or they may take 8 years. And that's why, once again, we're looking at the small successes that happen. Now you see the lower center picture. This person was sobbing because she was so happy that she learned how to ride a bike. And every single time, even 19 years later, I cry with the families, because we don't believe it's going to happen, and we just so greatly want it to happen. So then we move them outside. So first we teach them how to ride, then we teach them how to start and stop. We have a brake box that they are really working on going backwards to put on the brakes. And then they head out to a track, and at first, the staff and the volunteers are walking, and then they're running, and then they are sprinting. And they are keeping these people safe. And the leaders and the teams, they have open minds. They have to have an open frame of mind to believe that this can happen, and have high expectations for them. They look at all angles of what this individual might need and once again, looking for the barriers for them and creative ways to keep their feet on the pedals, which are straps, or keep them on the bike with a belt, or whatever it is. And there was lots of modeling that goes on. We work on not using really long, big sentences. If someone has a processing, it's hard for them to process. So it's foot on pedal instead of saying a very long sentence that's going to take them so long to process. We've learned that each disability is different, and what works for one may not work for others. And always we're thinking about, what is the intention? What is the goal? Because I can go outside onto the track and see that a team is having the person ride around and around and around. And then I'll say, well, what's your goal? The goal is to teach them how to start and stop. They already know how to do that, so stay focused on it. We have community rides. The Oregon Department of Transportation also gave us a large grant, and so we have a safety team, and we're now expanding into the community, teaching those skills and partnering with Safe Routes to Schools. Anything you want to say?
We have to your bike first in the park camp. The drop bikes outside in the nice sunny day. You do the bike first. Help. It's only charge in a tent outside second park.
Thank you. We have a rule, an agreement that families sign, that there can be no new physical learning during our camp. So they can play basketball, but they cannot take basketball lessons. They can go swimming, but they can't swimming lessons, because we want their central nervous system and everything inside to be processing the skills that they have learned during camp. This is part of our assessment and documentation. And look at that. That picture just makes me just so, grabs my heart. The look of pride and happiness that, look, Mom, I'm doing it. And she's like, yeah, you are. You're doing it. And this documentation is not only kept for our data and that we use for furthering our work, but it's also given to the families every single day. And on the last day of camp, they get an award, and they're so excited about that. And everyone is exhausted, and it's our favorite week of the year. We have anywhere from 70 to 80 volunteers and staff that work this camp, and we're all just a huge family. And they say so much here. And this is just an example of longevity. This is Cody with one of his best friends, Owen. And Owen's still coming back, and he is one of the leaders on our safety team. He is a leader of groups and a big part of Bike First, and truly believes in inclusion.
I did for graduate from Grant High School. Me and Owen we did graduate at 14 years ago.
And that is all. And I hope I didn't go over too much. So thank you for giving us this time to share.
Thanks so much, Ann and Cody. I really appreciate all of the passion, expertise, and energy that you bring to Bike First. And even with Bike First being an independent program, there are still so many connections between what you all do and what Safe Routes practitioners do. So just those practical steps of, and even how to, break down instructions or letting students explore, the physical space. All those are great tips that our Safe Routes practitioners can take back to their program too. So thanks so much for sharing that. Brian, I will pass it over to you to talk a bit about what's happening in Safe Routes to School in wonderful Fort Collins. So take it away.
Thanks, Corey. My name is Brian Krosucci. I work for the city of Fort Collins, which is our venue for this year's national conference. So you can come visit us. Let's jump right in. Mine's going to be a little different because I've set a little overview of our program here, and then a little bit about adaptive, and then I'll be, of course, be available for all our panel questions as we go on. So, okay. If you don't know where Fort Collins is, we're at the top center of Colorado. So this is called the Front Range down the middle of the image. So we're at the top of the really highly populated area, and we're only 30 minutes in a car from the Wyoming border. I guess I won't read that to you. This is so you can see the scale of our city. It's actually the fourth biggest city in Fort Collins, but compared to probably most of the places you all are from, it's not that big. Our brief history, 2005, CDOT being Colorado Department of Transportation grant. So they administer most of the Safe Routes federal money and then pass it down to us. So you can see some of our things are marked as us depending on those. So some infrastructure at the beginning, educational program in the beginning, 2010. I was not here. First staff member employed by the city, 2011, and then now the entire program is just funded out of the city budget. And I'll come a little bit back to our organizational structure in the next slide. But this funding covers things like crossing guards, which is kind of run by the schools, but paid for by the city. Educational programming, which is kind of what I'm here to talk about. The 1.75 FTE staff, so I'm the 0.75. Getting equipment and maintaining it, et cetera, just all the overhead. We're doing safety assessments at schools to do formal examinations of what's going on with patterns in the school zone. The school zone being it, getting out of it, getting to it. And then just general infrastructure as you would expect for safe routes to school activities. Okay, next slide, please. So the structure of our organization is, as I explained, the city pays for it and provides some staff, but really to run it, we have a contract with the local nonprofit Bike Fort Collins, and the executive director is here today. And they provide, I don't know, 15 plus or minus of their staff that comprise the main part of our people that are out in the field at the schools doing the work, leading those things. All these people are trained through a league-based certification. So league being League of American Bicyclists, the ones that provide, say, the league certified instructors, LCIs. So the league curriculum and skills are the basis for how we do our work. And then we have taken that and created a local curriculum that's graded for ages, because we do K through 12. And actually, most of the league material is for adult. So we've had an ongoing curriculum that we just keep editing and adding more to, and it's set up for different age groups. So the main structure here is the city, the nonprofit Bike Fort Collins to provide all the staff to actually deliver the content to the schools, and then our collaboration with the schools themselves, who give us access to the students via usually the PE class. And then what is the scale of our program? So these are just some statistics which I thought might demonstrate what scale we're operating at. So about 5,000 students per year. We see them those are the ones we see in the classroom during PE or similar. And then we have 2 or 3 contact hours with each of those students for the visit. And then we do plan on seeing them again as they go through their education. The city owns, say, 200 bicycles, trailers, other devices, as needed, of course, to fill in the gaps. So we ask them to bring their bikes, but anyone who doesn't bring a bike to school, we provide. The district owns and moves around for us 3 towed trailers, which I think we saw some of those equipment coming out of in previous slides. But yeah, trailers to deliver things, so we can just drop a trailer at a school and do the program, and then it moves to the next school. So that's really game changing. So we don't have to move any equipment ourselves. And then one thing we provide is we inspect all the bikes that the kids brought in that are going to ride during our program. So we inspect thousands of bikes per year, which is pretty amazing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I'm going kind of fast, so we have more time later. So what we're all here for, adaptive or inclusions. So here we were doing it before, but not formally. So in summer 2022 or similar, we really decided that we're going to do this and try to formally do it. So what do? We started talking to the schools and then the teachers that we already have relationships with, saying that we're going to do this and trying to get some feedback from them. We hired some teachers over the summer with expertise in both in the school district and with the material to help us out, and started adapting our processes. I'm not using my notes. Started adapting our processes to allow for this. So doing things like intake forms, which we saw from Bike First, like we used to know something about the students and be able to take notes and talk to the staff about what we're going to do when we come and try to include everybody when we do our normal visit. We needed to make someone responsible for delivering this part of the programming. We already have it dialed in to do the bulk of our programming, but this is a special section of it. And so we needed to make someone responsible for that. Learning the language of the adaptive special needs world. Let's see. So what did we find that we were really missing? Lack of knowledge in the subject area. So none of us are special ed teachers or operating in those professions now or in the past. So we are lacking knowledge in those areas. And we don't have someone on staff who can fill that role. New processes to share with all our staff. So we have an operating program at a pretty big scale. And this was not integrated in it before. So we needed to communicate to them, like, what are we going to do? And what are the new things that are going to happen? And we were also unprepared to integrate collection of the student information for those that we needed to do inclusions and adaptive work for. And then, of course, the usual things such as needing money and not having enough equipment, staff time, etc. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And by the way, these pictures are from programming in this season, so this year, 2024. So what have we been doing? Well, we tried to roll it out in this 2023-2024 school year. At the top in the middle, you can see this is one of our scheduling grids for scheduling staff. So we can see we have adaptive only lines now. So those did not exist before. We that wasn't something we're actively offering. We were just passively doing inclusions when we could. So we were able to reach a bunch of students. I'll speed up so we can keep going. Students we served over here, we actually ran an adaptive PE class. A teacher offered us that opportunity. So that's not something we would have normally done. We would have just done normal PE class and then included anybody who was there. But in this case, we did a special adaptive only PE class. And we always try to include when we're on field trips. Let's keep going. What did we learn? Oh, can we? Corey wants to move on because of time. Let's see.
No, sorry, you said keep going, so I thought you meant advance the slide. Go ahead, you're good.
What did we learn? We learned that we really do need dedicated staff to do this, and particularly someone with subject matter expertise. So sometimes we just drop into a PE class. We know there's 3 students who need the special accommodation in there, but we don't always know what they need at all. So they may have cerebral palsy, they may have Downs, you don't know, or they may have just a physical disability. So it's hard to tell. And so we need someone who has expertise working with those that can just pretty dynamically adjust between everyone's needs, which, we heard about from Bike First. More specialized equipment. So we do have an okay amount, but of course you always need more equipment to accommodate all sorts of different students. We learned that it takes more time per student, and you want as much time as you can get. Yeah, it's really important to gather information about those students that you're going to be helping in advance if possible. We learned that parents and staff can be very unaware of what kind of equipment is out there and even what we're offering, but especially the equipment and what their child could actually get onto and try out. So that's actually really fun and empowering for the students and us and parents and just all around, because we can introduce them to this, especially as we get more and more equipment. And then what plans have we made? as we go forward, because we are nowhere near advanced as Bike First. We're just starting at this. So what we want to do is do things like hire a specialist who has special ed experience, or anything that's actually in the field, so they have knowledge in this area. So we've been calling it the subject matter specialists. Hire that person. Keep practicing, because, well, all of education is all about practice, right? Find more equipment, of course, always need equipment. We do want to get a big trailer that can be alongside our normal bikes that we bring for everyone else. And then we can have an adaptive trailer only, because that stuff is so large. Just that rover in the picture above it, that thing is so big. And if you try to stuff 4 of those in a container, you start filling it up immediately. And then you have trailers and tag-alongs. And then continue the curriculum edits. So get as much as we can into our normal curriculum to accommodate as well. Okay, I think that's my last, yeah, I'll end there, and I can say a lot more when we go into our panel discussion, and you can ask us during Q&A.
Thanks so much, Brian. Yeah, Fort Collins, I think, also has another, really inspiring program. You all have really been doing a lot of planning around how to make this a long-term, sustainable investment. So appreciate you walking us through, through the steps that you all are taking. And finally, we have Angie, who is going to talk about a really awesome program that she does in Minneapolis Public Schools. So Angie, if you're going to get us started talking about Bike Day, we'd love to hear a bit about those celebrations.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, bike community. I'm Angie Powell. I am a Minneapolis resident and an MPS teacher leader for a department in special education called DAPE, or Developmental Adapted Physical Education. And for the past 15 years, our department has held what we call bike days for students across Minneapolis Public Schools. We really want students to bike independently with their peers. And our focus is to provide safe biking for all students in MPS to the best of our ability. The students that attend have varying abilities. And as you can see, I'm here at Edison High School today. The Minneapolis grounds wanted to move the day up and deliver the bikes today because our event is next week. So the next few days, I'll have a bike mechanic come over and we'll be doing some repairs for our various bikes. And then next week on May 21st, May 22nd, May 23rd, right here at Edison on the track, we have 29 kids from 29 schools that attend. And again, these are kids with varying abilities, disabilities, that we really want to get biking. We'll change to the next slide. So right now we have about 95 bikes in our fleet around, and we use some larger tricycles as well, some Strider bikes. We have some Von Ram bikes that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. Over the years, I've written grants. I've had tons of bikes donated, and Minneapolis Public Schools has purchased some bikes. We recently received a gift of adapted bikes because I helped a community partner from Twin Cities Adapted Cycling move her nonprofit onto one of Minneapolis Public Schools school property. And then the kids would bike in the city, but she has decided to not do that anymore. So now we're going to be taking over a few more bikes from her. Next slide, please. So on our bike days, we have about 410 students from across 29 schools, and we have kids in grades. We start with grade 4 because normally kids by then have some of those bilateral skills, some coordination skills, a little bit better balance. And then everybody's invited up through age 22 to attend. And I set up the field trip and work with the adapted physical education teachers on that day. And our goal again is to get everybody out biking with their peers. Here's an example of one of the bikes that we wrote a grant for. Our middle school student with his paraeducator biking on the track. And it's a Von Ram and Au Pair, if some of you know bikes, but we have hand cycles, we have side-by-side bikes, various bikes that we've just collected throughout the last 15 years. And our next big bike adventure is biking with students on the Greenway and West River Parkway bike paths by the Mississippi River in Minneapolis. And we hope to begin that in 2024 in the fall. And as you can see, we have that shipping container back there, and this is a staff development where all of our teachers, there's 17 of us adapted physical education teachers, are going out for a ride, and we did that last fall, and just hoping to continue it next fall. All of our adapted bikes are in the schools, so the kids can bike throughout the school year, and then we bring them here for our big event, but also for repairs. And then at the end of our bike event, I ship the bikes back to where the kids are gonna go in the next school year. So if a student is transitioning to a high school and they need a different bike, we identify that at our bike event, and on the 28th, we'll be shipping them back. So thanks.
Thanks, Angie. So I look forward to hearing how Bike Day goes. I know I watched a video of you and was told that it's an event that students like mark their calendars for at the beginning of the school year. So it seems like Bike Day is the event to be at, and is one of the highlights of the school year. So thanks so much for sharing a bit about that program, and also how you use Bike Day to help students learn how to bike independently in their own community. So it doesn't just stop on the track, right? That there's a larger goal of fostering, a real love of biking. So thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to have all of our panelists come back. We have time for a few questions. And again, if you in the audience have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. And maybe I'll just do, one quick question for, for all of you. And whoever wants to can start. So I know that within our audience, we have, people who might be used to, running accessible and inclusive programs, and then some people who might just be starting out on this journey. And so I'm curious to hear from you all, what advice you would give to Safe Routes practitioners who are aiming to make programs more inclusive. And it can be a very practical tip too. So whoever wants to take that one, I will turn it over to you.
I think it's just really getting to know your students and identify their needs, because safety for us comes first. We really want to make sure that kids feel safe, and just, engage with the community and reach out. And, we just want to invite everybody to come and bike, and, we're going to try and provide the best bike for you that we can. But yeah, that would be and also start with a grassroots group of people that you can kind of count on, that are in this to benefit everybody, but just that you can kind of rely on. Start small and build that group that way.
Okay, thanks, Angie.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Maybe looking for partners, I guess I'll say, is one thing we did. So we have an adaptive recreation department within the city. So just going to talk to them was really useful. And then, equipment is going to be a barrier for many. And so if you find that organization that's already doing something parallel or similar, maybe you can borrow equipment from them as needed. So.
Thanks, Brian. We have a few funding questions in the chat box, and a general question as you all are responding to these two, just about if there are any go-to funding sources or go-to grants that you all use to get some of your equipment, or even to hire staff or partners. If you have any suggestions around how to build up those resources to fund your programs, that would be helpful as well. Anne and Cody, I didn't know if you had any other insights for people who might just be starting out on making their programs more inclusive. Any practical best strategies or tips?
Well, I think that we gave a lot in our presentation, and once again, just say yes. Make the decision to do it, and then figure out how you're going to do it.
Great, thank you. Angie, did you want to add something? Sorry.
No, I think it's just kind of persevering to finding those grants, working with the Safe Routes to School folks, anybody in your community who's part of that bike community. I think if you reach out, you'll find various bike grants and people that might want to make donations. But yep.
Yeah, it kind of seems like reaching out to the local community. I think you all kind of touched upon these different partners or people who, have helped out and, have a, an extra bike here or some other resource there. So it's kind of also connecting and seeing who's in your, who's in your local area. I also see a question actually in the chat box about if you all have any curriculum guides or recommendations that you could use to start educating, that people can use to start educating their staff about engaging people with disabilities. So again, knowing that this might not be everybody's area of expertise, are there any particular go-to guides or resources that people can use to start educating other staff or other partners on how to be inclusive? I'm sure there's not a guide to catch-all guide, but any tips for that would be great.
I haven't, I guess I haven't really looked enough. I didn't use one, and I've been mainly using people and talking to them. One side thing I just discovered is there's a whole adaptive PE. And so I'm actually going to a conference, probably it's going to be full of PE teachers, so I'll be out of place a little bit. Yeah, adaptive PE perhaps, and getting some tips there on working with this community.
Great, thanks, Brian.
There is an adapted cycling manual that I'm going to try and put in the chat quick here.
Awesome. I see a question, actually, Ann and Cody, you might be able to answer this one. Any tips for getting students who might be reluctant reluctant students to wear or tolerate helmets? I know you talked a little bit about helmet use in your presentation, and Angie and Brian, if you have any other, tips too, but thinking about, still keeping students safe, but knowing that wearing a helmet might be a barrier, for some students who are learning to ride. Do you have any tips or strategies or considerations to ensure that all students can wear helmets?
One big thing to think about is that there's a difference in a helmet. And so look at the helmet that the family has, or look at the helmets that you have, and can you add padding to it? Is it hurting their head? I mean, what is it that's happening with their with sensory that is bothering with them? And then it's really just building that relationship, as Angie was talking about before, building the bond, figuring out what their behavioral incentive is, which we try not to have it be food, and just keep on working with it. We've always been able to get a helmet on someone.
I would agree. I've bought various sizes of helmets and extra straps and extra Velcro. And one time we even used a baseball helmet because this kid loved playing baseball. So
yeah, one strategy, well, we're really at the beginning of our journey, but one thing we learned is we should probably deliver helmets to the school early before our visit, and have the paras and parents work with the students to start learning to wear it, maybe little at a time, or just to desensitize them to the feel. So yeah, we're trying to integrate that into how we use helmets.
Great. And I wanted to wrap up. I know we have only a few minutes left, and those of you who might have questions in the chat box or have shared resources in the chat box, I'll save the chats. If there's anything that I missed, or if we want to share out resources afterwards, happy to do that. And also, if our panelists, you can just drop your emails in the chat box as well. I think I just dropped Ann's with Brian and Angie, and they'll be available on our in the slide deck too. So you all will get the full slide deck of everything that we talked about today. I'm curious if you all could just share one action step that somebody can take, in the next 30 days, let's say, to make their program more inclusive. I know that the school year is wrapping up, but if there's one step that somebody can take who's listening in today to make their program more inclusive, and I won't limit it to 30 days, but what would it be? I feel like, Anne, I already know yours. Because you said it a few times and it stuck with me since our first conversation. But what can somebody do to kick off their inclusive program?
I'm going to say reach out to your adapted physical education teacher. And I just really have to give kudos to our whole department. Over the years, we've all worked together, and I just feel grateful to work with the people that I do in Minneapolis Public Schools. And so, yeah, I'm going to suggest that. Reach out to your adapted physical education teacher.
Thanks, Angie. Brian.
I'll say similar. Not all our schools have adaptive PE contact or anything, but yeah, I think find some strong partners where you are. So if Bike First was there, or in our case, we have adaptive recreation department. Yeah, find someone that can help you just get a foot in the door and find out who to talk to, because yeah, it's a different community that you may have no contacts inside of.
And Ann and Cody, you want to wrap us up?
I was just putting. There we go. I was just putting in the chat to contact local programs like a Down syndrome program, autistic program. And I just put out Northwest Disability Supports is who we are with. Cody, what final words do you want to say to everybody? What final words do you want to say with everyone who's here?
I don't kids just need to bike helmets. And your parents, you need it with them. Yeah, all the stickers, you need to take a break, you need bikes, we have paddles, paddling, you need to try bike, you need to post it by yourself.
And you love riding your bike.
Yes.
He rides it everywhere.
Awesome. That's what we love to hear. That's why we're, you know, that's what we're here for, to, you know, not only teach the safety piece and the education piece, but really spreading the love and joy of biking and walking and, you know, and enrolling to all students. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I really appreciate, you know, you all as presenters sharing your expertise and knowledge. I might be following up with you. People are asking about like your intake forms and other things, and so I'll make sure that that gets out to our audience as well. Thank you all so much for joining our last Walk, Ride, Enroll webinar of the year. Thank you to our expert panelists for sharing all of your expertise and wisdom. I know that I learned a lot just from listening to you all, and I'm sure that our audience did as well. So with that being said, we will go ahead and wrap up for today. Please make sure that you stay on to take our quick survey and keep an eye out for an email from me with the webinar recording. And again, if you have any other questions or resources that you need, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll also share the panelist emails in my follow-up email as well. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. And another thank you to our panelists. Thanks, Cody. Go Celtics. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody who might be, what is it, Cleveland? I don't even know who they're playing now, but I'll support the Celtics with you, Cody. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.